Dead bug. Howdy, folks, and welcome to
welcome back, Paul.
Yeah. There's this episode's bumper right there. Howdy, folks, and welcome to episode 498 of the Dead Robot Society. I'm Paul E. Cooley. Joining me, as always, my co-host Terry Mixon.
I just love the sneer in your tone when you say my name. Say it again.
Terry Mixon.
All right, I'm done. That's my life. I'm complete now.
You're done. You're good. I complete you. Is that what you're telling me?
That's it exactly.
Wow. Wow, you must really be broken in a very, very sick and wrong way. Anyway, how the hell are you, man? What's going on?
I'm good. Riding up a storm, getting lots of things done. I'm still about 2 weeks away from finishing up Clan Wars, which that title will not survive. Liberty Station's audio is now live on Audible. I have to send out notes once it's all in good pieces parts, but it's there. Veronica has said that the audio for the Terra Gambit is off to the professional editor type people that are going to get it all put together and produce it and do the quality checking on it. So it's in the pipeline. I'm good.
You're good.
Everything's working out. My muse is speaking to me. Things are working well, which undoubtedly means that your muse is giving you the finger.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's how it always works.
Pretty much. I'm still writing. It's just going very, very slow. Very, very slow. And I'm setting some things up and then having to go back and look at it and say, am I revealing too much here? Does this not fly with what's going on in Destruction, which I'm recording right now, which is also distracting the shit out of me. So it's one of these weird deals where I'm kind of like, I just feel like I'm stuck in a vice. I'm just kind of stuck plodding along and I hate it. So tonight, when I probably after dinner, I will shut down everything, get everything out of my life and spend an hour and try and see how many words I can bash through this. And then I will go back to recording. I need to get to 52% today. I really need to. That's probably going to require me to record 4 more chapters. So I've already got some done today, but the lawnmower chorus stifled that. So I edited instead because I still got to do that. So
have the people in your neighborhood, you just started combining things? So you've got the lawnmower, leaf blower, sand blaster, all in one unit?
There was one time where there were 2 lawn services outside at the same time on our block.
Wow.
Oh God. It was just unconscionable. It was just so bad. It's like, yeah, I can't record. I can't even hear myself. I can't even hear my headphones. I know I'm deaf, but holy crap. You just want to go out there with a shotgun and say, no, stop. There's no reason for this kind of abuse. So, yeah.
It's time for you to work at night.
Yeah, it's been suggested over and over again. And if I could survive the transition from one to the other, I'd probably be good, but I'm not really sure I can. Because I still have to be on call for day job stuff when it comes up. So, yeah, that's not as much of an option as I wish it was.
You need to win the lotto.
No, I just need to write faster.
There's that too.
Yeah, I need to write faster. I need to record faster. And then I need to be able to write to afford to pay somebody else to read my work. The editing. Oh my God, the editing. There was one episode or one chapter of Derelict, and it's 12 minutes, maybe 12 to 15 minutes. It took me 25, 30 minutes to record it. And then it took an hour to do the editing.
You must really love your listeners.
It was rough. And it was because of all the special effects. I had to chop everything up and put it in the effects stuff. And it's just a nightmare. Just a freaking nightmare. Why do I do this to myself? Why? Yes, I love my listeners. Anyway, that notwithstanding. So we're going to try and break out of this rut somehow, some way, some fashion. I had another idea for another series the other night and kind of went, You need to stop. You really
Another
need to
series.
stop.
I'm so proud.
Oh, shut up. You be quiet. You be quiet. Quiet, you. I need to start the Tony Down stuff. I need to start that working on that. But I got to do all this other crap I want to write too. So yeah, there you go. Just need to put a book out in every series a year. That'd be cool. Bing, 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 bing. Be very nice. Anyway,
how many books a year would that be for you?
For me?
6?
7? No. Mm-mm. You only got right now Derelict in the Black.
Okay.
Because the Graga stuff is not a series, so to speak, yet. And actually, it will never be a series. So the only two that I've got just Derelict and the Black until we get the Tony Down stuff going. But then there's
you could put out 3 books a year on those.
Yeah,
each one.
I could.
You could do 9. You could make it happen.
9. I have to write shorter books.
There is that.
Much shorter books.
What's this current one going to be at? 130,000 words?
I don't know. Destruction's 130. I'm having a feeling that we're 21,000 words in and we are nowhere near getting to Trident Station. So this may be a big one. We'll see.
You may get a little further in this story and then discover you're not going to get to Trident Station at all. You're just not. It's not going to happen.
No, we're going to get there. We're going to get there, goddammit, and we're going to take care of business. We're going to get it done. I mean, keep in mind, I'm trying to end something. It has to end. It has to.
Yeah.
It has to end. This part, Derelict, has to end. The characters can live past this series if that's necessary or whatever else happens in the last book. But the bottom line is the series itself has to end.
Have fun storming the castle, boys.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. So anyway, other than that, the usual shenanigans. Knees in good shape. Good. So I more or less recovered from my lower back problems, but still have flare-ups every once in a while, but things are alive. So
now you just have to keep doing the magic. Keep making the words happen.
Yeah, you bastard. How dare you do this to me? Anyway, Terry, do you remember this episode, this discussion that went completely off the freaking rails about Balticon? A cool little thing.
I was going to say, just about all of our discussions pretty much go off the rails.
I was telling you about a cool thing that happened at Balticon, and suddenly it became an episode.
I remember that it happened. What we actually talked about, it's been a couple of weeks since we recorded the episode itself, so I've forgotten.
It had to do with AIs.
Oh, this was the computer panel that you guys had.
Yeah, the impromptu panel. So anyway, let's see what this madness is all about. I was revisiting Ghost in the Shell standalone complex because there was something still bouncing around that story. I don't know what it is, but there's something about that particular tale that just keeps nagging at me. There's something that wants to get blasted loose. So there was a video game that just came out called Detroit Become Human, and I hadn't been able to play it. What I did though is I watched a couple of I watched a YouTuber play the first couple of episodes just to see if it was a game I wanted to spend money on. Holy fucking shit, it's insane. Basically the concept is that these androids are turning into quote unquote deviants, and that's where their software gets corrupted in such a way that they start to experience real emotions or some facsimile thereof. And once they start experiencing quote unquote emotions, they begin shattering their programming because they now have empathy. And for empathy to truly work, you have to have some sort of independence to be able to react to situations. So otherwise you just face immortal suffering by watching those and feeling it and not being able to do anything about it.
Yeah.
So all of that keeps bouncing around in my skull. But the other part I was really thinking about was that if humanity in that series, they also covered this problem. And of course, a lot of people are being pissed off and going off to the races about how it's supposed to be an analog to certain things that are going on right now, which who gives a fuck. The point still is that it brings that question of slavery, and you know, it's part of that, which is we're just supposed to have slaves that work for us and do nothing else. They're not really beings; they're just pieces of plastic, as is so often reframed in the game, from what I can tell. If that attitude suddenly gets shattered to the point where we realize that we're actually at risk, then people are going to freak the hell out. How many machines will be outlawed in a hurry?
Well, I say, welcome back to the Amish society. Good luck with that, sports.
So you agree with me that there's going to be like complete and total pandemonium. So it seems to me like society is going to split in that particular way, is going to split off into different camps. You're going to have different camps where it's, you know, kill all AIs. It's going to have, you know, the people who are like, can't we work something out? And then you're going to have the AI rights activists, right, who are trying to basically say, hey, we fucked up. We need to fix this. No matter what the cost, we need to fix this.
I assume you have not seen Solo.
No, I have not.
Okay. Spoiler alert here on this one here, a minor spoiler, but you could kind of determine that Lando Calrissian's droid was not really the normal droid just from the previews that they had out for the movie.
Okay.
His droid, this is not really letting out too much in saying this. The reason he hasn't basically reformatted the droid and reset the personality is because it has one of the most, the best databases for going into hyperspace. So okay. He doesn't want to screw up the database. So he's been letting this droid go for a while. And needless to say, during the movie, its personality quirks show up full force.
Do they cause anybody any danger?
Oh, hell yes, they cause people danger.
Love it.
And it's a droid's right activist.
Oh, no.
So I just thought I'd mention that because, yeah, I was thinking of you the entire time I was seeing that going, oh, yeah, Paul's going to like that.
I'm just sitting there going, there's so much material here to play with. And there's so many possibilities to explore all those ideas. And the flip side of that was, Terry, if they become that intelligent and that sentient, wouldn't they break up into a few groups?
Oh, yeah.
So then you would have the kill all humans brigade. You would have the cooperate with humans brigade. And then you would have the human rights brigade.
And you would have the set out into deep space so we never have to see another human being ever again brigade.
Yes. So that would be the Luddite brigade of the other side.
I don't know that that's the Luddite brigade. That may actually be forward thinking, wanting to get so far out into deep space that they can found their own society without the influence of their creators.
Correct. But basically, the Luddites would demand complete isolation from AIs. So the result is the same, even though it's different.
I agree with what you're saying it is. However, that's not what Luddite means.
Luddites were those who smashed technology,
who
blamed it for loss of their jobs, and their response was basically destroy anything industrial. How is that not applicable in this situation?
Because they're not wanting to destroy humanity. They're wanting to leave. They're not wanting to go back in time. They're not wanting to get rid of their own technology. It just doesn't, the word doesn't seem to quite fit. I understand what you're meaning. I'm just complaining about the word. That's all.
Okay, fine. We can argue semantics all fucking day. The humans, but a Luddite, I would say from the human side is essentially, in this case, an isolationist.
Yes, I'm talking about the AI side.
The AIs would be isolationists too.
Yes.
That's what I meant.
I can agree with that.
And that, man, that whole concept just opens up. I mean, just explodes a universe into so many different pieces, and so much to explore there. And I could even go where I can write stories where the AIs are the bad guys. I can write the stories where the humans are. I can detail the human societal changes when they start getting rid of all of their smart computing stuff, and basically take steps backward. And then I could also go at what happens when we get past that and start cooperating. The only question is, and of course we're humans, so this is what we'll do, is how long the war will last between the two as the humans try and make the AIs extinct.
Oh, okay, Paul. It just occurred to me, we're probably about 20 minutes into the episode. Because this conversation is not ending anytime soon.
Anytime soon. Once again,
not going away.
Paul's off to the races.
Now, I want to say, hi, listeners. I want to say that you bring up a lot of parallels to the reincarnated Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah, to a certain degree.
To a certain degree, where their robotic creations have gone rogue, where they have to step back their own technology in order to protect themselves. It's not the same thing, but there are parallels there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But even with the old BSG, I would make the argument that it's the same thing, right? Because the Cylons were created by man and everything else. Yada, yada.
Yes, but you didn't have people having to step back their technology in order to survive in the original Battlestar Galactica.
You are correct, because we never really got to see what the planets did in response, because it was the apocalypse and there was no pre-apocalypse. This one just happened.
Yep.
So, yeah, I get what you mean.
Well, in the original series, the Cylons were actually the creation, I think, of a different race. Cylons were not human. They were not human created.
I thought they were.
I'm pretty sure they were not.
I have to look.
But that's okay. One way or the other. I know that in some of the comics, particularly, the Cylons had physical bodies and they were alien. They were not all of them were robotic in nature. And so I maybe I'm wrong, but I seem to think that they may not have actually been human creations as the Cylons in the original series. But the one thing that was different with them is that Battlestar Galactica and their forces never had to step back their computers or their technology to try and undo something they'd done to themselves. So there's definitely a slight difference that makes the newer revision much more appropriately parallel to what we're talking about than the original.
I got you. Huh. This is really interesting.
You looking it up?
Yeah.
Was I right? I'm going off of a 30-year-old memory here.
I think you are anyway. I think you are. Where is it? The original Cylons Battlestar Galactica, robotic antagonists bent on destroying all humankind. Oh, much to Fred Saberhagen's Berserker stories, which we talked about before, including his fictional race, the Builders.
There we go.
Whose sliding single red eye became the signature design elements of the Cylons. I had forgotten about the Builders, because they're the ones who supposedly put the Berserkers together for the war.
Somebody had to.
Yeah, somebody created them. I want to do it. I don't want to create something that's so simplistic, so binary in nature, if that makes sense.
Sure, I can understand that.
So, I mean, trying to create, that's basically 6 different camps you've got, 3 human and 3 AI, if you want to really simplify it.
Those are 3 camps that we came up with, and it doesn't even count the bazillion splinter groups on either side that we can't possibly foresee until somebody starts writing into it and goes, oh, what about this little post-apocalyptic group that only wants to do subject A, that wants to do something else, the ones that want to enslave the AIs, to make them their servants in truth. There's all kinds of weirdness that's going to be going on behind the scenes. Right. But where I was going with this is, if you have a group of them leave, wouldn't it be really funny if they arrive in some location and find human beings? That would really upset their view of how everything worked.
Now that's how you end up with Battlestar Galactica 1977 or 79, whatever it was.
It was 1980. Oh, the original
78.
was 78 is
78.
when it's 77, 78 when it started, because they did the Battlestar Galactica in 1980 and tried to run with that.
Yeah.
And that totally blew it up. Don't do that, folks.
Yeah, don't
ever do that.
Don't ever do that. That was a really bad idea. No.
You should have stopped when you found Earth. Really?
Yeah,
no, stop right there. That's all you need. Stop right there.
That's all you got in story. You guys obviously didn't really consider what was going to happen after that. I like it better how they did it in BSG. That's right. You ever? Sorry.
That's okay. I only watched through season 2, and I probably will never see the remainder of it.
That's very unfortunate because I think it's really excellent up to that point.
I don't disagree. I didn't stop watching it because it was bad. I got sidetracked by other things, and I just don't have the time to devote to watching it. So I'm not disparaging it. One of these days, perhaps I will go back and watch it again and try to watch it. But that was it, 5 seasons? God, I don't know if I could catch up to that and still have a life.
It's only like 50 episodes. Come on.
All right. Now, would I be better off spending the time to watch it or Babylon 5?
As long as you ignore the 5th season of Babylon 5.
So only watch seasons 1 through 4 of Babylon 5.
That's right. Then stop.
Then stop. Pretend that, this is where it ends. Yeah. Watch no further. I had no idea they did. I never watched a single episode of Babylon 5.
Never mind. Say no more. Go watch the fucking shit. 1 through 4. Do not watch 5.
Okay. I can accept that.
You probably want to watch 5 anyway, but I'm just warning you now.
It sucks. Damn it.
Well, it's there's too much nostalgia and self-pity. It just feels broken.
Well, that sucks.
It's hard to explain it, but it just doesn't go where it needs to go.
Sometimes storytellers take a wrong turn. Unfortunately, when you do it for an entire season, it really sucks.
Yeah, it's bad. And I've never understood about TV how they do. The writers will be like, they get together and they write like 4 episodes, and then they go and they work on the next 4 episodes. It's like, okay, guys, this is really freaking dangerous when you do this kind of shit, because
it could be worse. Look what they did in the original Lost in Space. They had different people writing different episodes. And so the robot went from being intelligent to being a basic mechanical moron.
Right.
And then back again.
Yes.
You really need to have a continuity editor watching you there, bud. Yeah. Or somebody at least watching your continuity. Speaking of continuity, I was reading through the most recent book that I have because I had to go find a name for a character.
What'd you do this time?
I found out that I changed somebody's name.
Again.
In book 8. Again, in book 8. Nobody said a single thing about this. It was only mentioned twice in passing. The person wasn't actually present, but nobody noticed it and sent me a note. So I've already submitted the fixed copy. Like, damn it.
That's awesome. I'll bet you feel like a bonehead now, don't you?
Yeah, well, that's okay. I haven't killed the same guy twice yet. Although, with J.R. Hanley, I could probably kill him multiple times.
In consuming all this media, it leads to these questions and all this what if bullshit. And we were talking about this at the table. I was like, if you listen to the AI guys that are around today, they're doing research and everything else. They're poo-pooing all this science fiction idea of sentience. They basically say, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Never going to happen. Fine. So if you're want hard sci-fi but don't want to ask the question, what if, then don't read what I'm writing.
There was a panel at the SIFWA convention, the Nebula convention, that was talking about AI as well. Mm-hmm. I sat in on that, and they kind of went the other direction from your panel, apparently. They said that sentience of some sort would probably almost certainly occur in some form or fashion. Mm-hmm. But I had a problem with the way they were talking about AI. They were talking about it like it was a self-contained thing that wasn't really influenced by humanity. That it was, once it was created, it was like a shining marble that was unbreachable by something else. So I brought up the idea in a question to them. I said, well, it's not AI. Let's say in the future you've got automated systems that, you know, are becoming close to AI. Say your smart driving cars as an example. Using those as an example, comparing them to an AI. What if, like in cars, you have human beings that hack these cars and change their basic functions,
right,
and cause chaos with it? What about AIs? What if human beings, or other AIs for that matter, hack other AIs and change their programming to do something that is wrong? And then I was roundly poo-pooed for saying that.
really,
And they moved on along. They were not interested in hearing me say that.
That's who the fuck were these people, and how do I make sure I don't ever read any of their books?
But I was really dissatisfied with their approach to it, because while it certainly talked about AI, it wasn't interesting to me as a writer, because it sounded so clinical, so cold. The stories were not mixed with humanity.
Right.
And that's where the rubber meets the road for me as a writer.
And I think I said this before, if we create these damn things, you better believe they're going to be creating our own image, because that's what we do. That is, we anthropomorphize our dogs and cats, our goldfish, whatever. We try and make them like us because we want them to be able to communicate with us. We want to attribute human emotions to them. And I think that's part of the payoff that we get from making them into empathetic beings. The result is the same, even though they may not have those emotions or be thinking what we think they're thinking. As long as we believe that's what they're thinking, it makes us happy.
It just felt to me, and I don't want to slam anybody that was on the panel. They were having their discussion, but it just felt to me that they weren't addressing it in a way that was really appropriate to telling a gripping story.
Yeah, I guess part of the problem with that is it's really difficult to write a story. Say you go to the old Enterprise, the original Enterprise.
Mm-hmm.
If you had to deal with that AI all day, wouldn't it drive you nuts? Computer, beep boop beep beep boop boop. No independent thought, no being able to.
That wasn't an AI. That was just a sophisticated computer system.
Essentially, yes. If I had to deal with something like that all day, it would be very, very difficult to get anything done. That's not the cold calculation. That's not that is literally just reducing it to a machine but you can't write a story with that, I don't think. Because if all it's doing is going through its algorithms, we can write from a hacker point of view of how broken maybe its thinking is underneath and that kind of deal. But it's not as interesting to me at all. It does seem very cold. And that's not the kind of story I'd like to write. I want to write something that does have that feel of warmth to it. Unless you're writing about just some researchers who are working on it and make some interesting discoveries, I just don't know. It just doesn't appeal to me. I can see where they're coming from, though.
Yeah,
and of course, there's that other belief that even if they do reach sentience, will we even notice? Because it may evolve in such a way that we don't even understand what is happening. Like that case of Google where they had two AIs that were suddenly communicating with one another.
Yeah, they had to shut that down quick.
Shut that down real fast. Now they have come out and said,
how we kill our overlords.
They have come out and said that we talked about this weekend too, especially on the Catherine Acero panel on Mythwits, about the fact that don't be looking at Facebook. We were talking about the fact that the Pete made the comment that the Google engineers said they didn't necessarily know what was going on there. Somebody postulated, hey, maybe they made up their own language. And the others went, that's terrifying. Fuck that shit. But it could have been just a network or error. It could have just been a bug in the network software. It's going to be an interesting place to play. I bought iRobot I have never read it. I have never read any of Asimov's robot stuff. That's probably not true. I think I've read one or two stories, but I've never read the full the full gamut of what he had to say about robots.
I'm not sure. I don't know that I've actually read I, Robot either, now that we come down right down to it. I did read, he wrote some stuff way back. I'm trying to say it was a series of books called Lucky Star with 2 R's that were youth-oriented stuff. I think that was Asimov. And that's where I became familiar with his 3 laws of robotics.
Okay. I thought it was very interesting that how when I went and looked up the Wikipedia entry for iRobot, it was apparently it's a collection of stories, and he was actually influenced by another story called iRobot that I guess was written 20 years before he wrote and he started writing his stuff, and he fought with the publisher over the title. And the publisher decided they were gonna grab the title of that story, and apparently Asimov was pissed. So he didn't have enough say in how the book came out, but evidently that really bristled him, and he didn't like the fact that they used that name for it, and didn't like the fact that they didn't really consult with him and give him the option of saying no, we're not doing that.
Welcome to Trade Pub.
Yeah, welcome to Trade Pub. So in looking at that, he's got all these different stories. I didn't read any of the synopses, but I've heard that they're all over the place. I think I remember reading about the AI politician, but I can't be sure. I can't be sure if I remember that correctly. I have to go back and read. And I guess I'll need to read Robots of Dawn too, but it's more along the lines of going through and digesting what dreams are already out there. What can I incorporate? And what can I grab? What can I steal? What can I borrow? Of course, I don't want to borrow anything. I want to steal and thieve like a mofo. Because it's not only
the way of writers.
It's the way of writers. That's right. I want to see what he dreamed to go, ooh, that was cool. Let's include that in this crazy nightmare I'm conjuring up.
Yeah, I think that works perfectly.
We now pause for our garbage truck outside. Can you hear that?
I can't.
Awesome. Then I'll just continue. I had this thought though. It was like it made me want to. When I was talking to John Walker about this, we got done with the panel, our impromptu panel, where it was really like halfway through it. I looked at John. I said, "Why isn't this a panel?" And he went, "Because it's not next year."
I think that bringing writers together in the form of not worrying about presenting things to an audience, in the form of not soliciting questions from the audience per se, just bringing them together to talk over a subject and let people watch it happen is definitely a worthwhile thing.
That's what Dave Robeson was saying. He said that kind of discussion needed to happen in a salon where it's just the writers basically having the conversation, having people out there and having them occasionally maybe offer a point or something along those lines. But mainly it's about the authors spinning their imaginations up into crazy. And
yeah, dial it to 11.
Yeah, turn it up to 11 and just let it go. And see what happens, because it was just there were so many questions, and each of those questions about what if this, what if that, what would that mean, what are the ramifications, and every time you start doing that, all this stuff just cascades, and pretty soon you've got the idea for 7 or 8 stories.
Those kind of things are how our brainstorming episodes come around.
Yeah, that's exactly
Seriously.
Right. And I was thinking, wow, we got to have another one. And we needed to do it soon because this was too damn much fun.
Well, shit, yeah, it's always fun.
Awkward. And that had to do with what I was talking about with the Hilbert spaces. Wow, we've gone in circles with instantaneous communication and everything else. There's all these possibilities for how all that would work. Sigler's got a really good story called EU networking, which is basically the kind of things that ants do, and was taking it one step further, where they're cooperating and communicating at a level that we just do not get. and able to come up with some really crazy stuff on their own to solve problems.
What? I have some visual. I can't remember. I think it was mentioned during the panel that I was at where they were talking about, or maybe it was a different panel. They were talking about in some science fiction show that it was in the future. It talked about how things kept advancing. And one of the little throwaways in the show is somebody was walking past an anthill and there was a little cart that the ants were pulling along. They never mentioned, no one ever mentioned it. It just was right there in the background. And it's like, okay, so the ants, have went up a notch here.
That'd be a hilarious thing to put in the movie, right? The folks are talking to everything else. The ants back there like building a rocket ship. Nobody notices.
Exactly. It's like civilization's happening in the background.
Building a goddamn weapon.
It's like they're building a big old stretchy thing, something at you like a slingshot. Hit somebody in the head, drag them back into the mound.
Oh yeah, I like that image too. Of course I would. Yeah, hooking up tethers and just pulling them with their massive ant strength into the mound to consume them. Yeah.
Then later on in the show, has anybody seen Bob?
Yeah, has anybody seen Bob? What happened to Bob? What about Bob? It really lit me up that to get those different viewpoints from folks and having them ask questions. And really it all came about to it all stemmed from, hey Paul, what about this? That's really what it did. We were just sitting down and John wanted to talk through scenario, and then everything just blew up.
All right. Here I can think of the title for a series of podcasts about something like that. Ask me about blank.
Oh no. And now DRS presents its new series. What about blank?
Yep. Something like that. Drag somebody on and drag a couple of writers on and go, okay, what are we going to talk about? What subject are we just going to totally eviscerate here and go to town on? And then take whatever it is they want to talk about and just go nuts on the subject matter. We've done that. That's like brainstorming for subjects as opposed to brainstorming for story ideas.
Yeah. Fascinating. Patrons, tell us what you think. We'd love to hear it. Or listeners in general, I should say.
That's right.
Since this apparently is going to go out.
Since apparently this is the episode. I find it hilarious that it's always Paul that seems to drag us into these wild conversations that
I was just
rambling started episodes.
I was just trying to explain the cool thing that happened at Balticon. What do you want from me?
I want exactly what you're doing. That's what I want. Keep doing it.
Space, the final crazy. So then I got this idea about all this stuff can going into the G Chronicles, which is why now I'm just going absolutely crazy. I even came up with an idea for a short story collection.
Michael Cooper has AIs in his Aeon 14 universe. We're talking full sentient AIs, many of them that are for periods of time implanted in conjunction with a human being, actually working with them inside their own body. Not always. They sometimes control ships. I'd say more often they control ships and other pieces of equipment. They're not actually usually cohabitating with a human being. But if I remember correctly, part of what goes into creating an AI is once it's, if you want to use the word hatched, it's created, it's placed with a family to grow up with a mother, daughter, family, with a child in conjunction with the family, to pick up the morals from the family, to pick up humanity from the family, to pick up something that's not AI specific. And then they go on to grow into being AIs after they've left the family. But it gives them a basis of humanity that they don't lose going forward. That even though they are not human, they still have some understanding of what it is to be human.
Gotcha.
And I thought that was an interesting idea as well. I'm actually not sure that it was Cooper now that I think about it. I've read a lot of stuff with AI going on about it. So I may be saying that it's him, but it may not be. So don't come after me if I'm wrong, people.
Well, yeah. Please don't. Our memories are shit.
Mhm.
Regardless of who that is, that's a very fascinating way of thinking about it. I like that actually. My only answer, or I guess, my only counterpoint to that is that for that really to work in my head, that means they would have to have a human analog. They would have to have an android body, or as you said, implanted with a human being.
I think that was the key, is that it was implanted inside. Was it implanted? My memory is for shit. I can't remember. I'm not going to claim how it worked out. I just remember that. I'll have to look it up later and see if I can determine who it was.
Okay. I just, when I've been thinking about this with in the Soul and Beyond universe, I had this idea of just like a base. When we think about when you develop a computer, or you put a computer out there, you've got a base operating system.
Mhm.
Behind the lines, there's some kind of kernel that runs everything, that knows how to talk to everything, that knows how to use device drivers and etc. And then you have the operating system on top of it, which is a little more, or the pieces around it that actually make it functional for a human being to interact with it. So there is a base of some sort that the AIs would be built from. It makes sense to me there would be some kind of base personality there for that. And then I want to play with that. How things can go horribly wrong. All it takes is a rounding error, and now you're screwed.
Yeah, just ask JPL about that Mars probe.
Oh, Lord.
That wasn't a rounding error. They accidentally used the wrong measuring system.
Yes, the Europeans were using metric, as one does, and the Americans were using the English system, which no one should use. Yeah, that was kind of a goofy thing. How does that even happen?
Somebody wasn't checking.
How does that not get checked? How do you not see that in the diagram? How do you not see that in the specifications? 1 meter, not 1 foot, bonehead.
Actually, I think it was miles versus kilometers. But
yes, it
yeah,
was miles versus kilometers.
So yeah, I don't know what to say. I don't really know who the responsible party was there, but that definitely proves that no matter how careful you are, you can lose a multi-million-dollar piece of hardware by having people not talk to one another, not understand what they're doing. So that could certainly carry over to AIs.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Or anything, ship design, shipbuilding, any kind of technology you can imagine that a major corporation is putting out, or somebody else. I mean, if Atmo F's up something in the Derelict saga, in Soul and Beyond rather, everybody's going to have the problem.
I seem to remember a couple of years ago reading about somebody designing a ship, some fairly big ship that they were building, and they found out once they were pretty far along in the process that the thing was too top heavy to actually float.
Wow.
Somebody missed it. Somebody made a huge mistake. And I have no idea how they actually rectified that, or even if they could. I want to say it was the German Navy, actually, that did that.
Oh, is that what happened recently?
I don't know.
I know the German Navy was getting a ship, and they inspected it or whatever and went, nope, we're rejecting this thing.
It may very well be. I don't know for sure, but it sounds about right. I think it was the German Navy, and whoever designed and built the ship didn't allow for enough buoyancy, and the thing was capsize worthy.
Yeah, it's kind of a problem for a floating city. Because that's what when you're talking about aircraft carrier or something like that, that's what those things are. They're floating cities. And if you don't believe me, look at how many personnel fit on one.
I think ours have something like 5,000 people.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. And some of these oil rigs, same deal. You get 10,000 people on those things at any one time. That's a city. That is not a structure. That is not a vehicle. That is a damned city.
Well, let's go back to to AIs for a second because I want to bring in the obvious thing here.
No, there's something obvious.
Yes, there is.
Do we start calling
every
you Captain
major computer-related technical advance is brought around by the porn industry. So how does that work for AIs? You know it's true. Come on.
What do you think? Why do you think it reached sentience in the first place? Somebody screwed up and created the first porn bot that was, capable of really getting freaky.
I got nothing to add to that.
You got nothing to add to that. I hadn't really considered whether or not that needs to be a thing on these on these SF Gov military stations, that they've got porn bots on there so the soldiers can, take care of business.
Well, why not?
Oh my God. Oh, that would be so damn funny. I can't believe I didn't think about that when I wrote Marines.
But seriously, AI, I could see where, while they might not invent AI, they will certainly be happy to use AI for making porn of some form or kind. That's going to be a thing.
Oh yeah, and it goes. I mean, we're already seeing that with real dolls to a certain degree because they're putting in. If you don't know what a real doll is,
those Japanese dolls are pretty scary.
NSFW folks, definitely not safe for work. But I think if you go to realdoll.com or you Google it, you can go see what we're talking about. They've essentially spent all this money and time replicating human form into I can't remember what the material is, but it's very skin-like, and they're made to custom dimensions, and some of them, and they have working parts, so to speak, with kind of terrifying levels of accuracy.
And with the way that Japanese robots continue to advance to replicate human beings' appearance and behaviors as far as just how they look, it's not hard to imagine in 10 or 20 years that they won't have a full body robot for sex that isn't pretty darn close to a human being.
Oh God, they covered this in a Futurama episode. Fry ends up with falling in love with a droid, a robot, and they force him. This is like a big time no in that society, and they even have these little propaganda films about what happens if people fall in love with their robots, and basically it ends up with the world being destroyed because nobody's doing anything besides having sex with their robots. And it was really funny at the time, and part of me was like, yeah, I could totally see that happening. Could totally see that happening, where sexual bliss is literally just a button push away.
It's like the holodeck on the Enterprise. Oh, tell me there was not an orgy with Riker in there somewhere.
Tell me there wasn't porn with half the crew in there. Come on.
Half the crew?
Oh, yeah.
All the crew. Come on. Even Data was fully functional. Talk about your future sex robot right there.
I need an uninterrupted 5-minute jaunt in the holodeck. Make sure a mop is on hand.
Just 1 second, number one.
Humans, we suck. The overriding drive, and this goes back to what I was talking about with the anthropomorphosis. That's what that is. I mean, a doll is an anthropomorphosis of putting our own selves into cloth, silicone, whatever. That's what that is. Making something in our own image. Tell me that's not playing God.
To a degree, sure.
And then when you add the part of control to it, that's when the question about
when does your sex robot have rights?
Does your sex robot have
yes, they rights? Know.
If they're aware of how they're being used, do they have rights? Are they individuals?
Well, just looking at the way an organization of, say, PETA, They say animals have rights. They say they just recently had a court case where they were trying to say that a Macau that snapped a picture using a photographer's piece of equipment owned the photograph that he had created. They argued that in court. They lost that particular argument, but there are groups that are willing to say that anything can have rights.
Did you ever read Restaurant at the End of the Universe by Douglas Adams?
Years and years ago.
Okay. Minor spoiler. Humankind is developed, well, not just humankind, the entire galactic denizens of reprobates out there have developed to the point where they genetically engineer food that wants to be eaten.
I do vaguely remember that. Yeah.
So they're in the steakhouse area, and the cow actually comes up to them to ask them what parts of him do they want to eat. It is so ridiculous.
As an aside, because of a meme that I saw on Facebook, I am a secondhand vegetarian because the cow eats grass and I eat the cow.
Right. Okay. Yeah. All right. Now that we have that straightened out, the really scary part about that scene is there's only one person in the entire place that has a problem with it, who thinks it's weird and cannot deal with it. And then that leads to another question, man. If you brainwashed a creature into wanting to do what you want them to do from the outset, what have you done? It's terrifying. You got all these ethics, all these ethical, philosophical problems that crop up.
All right. Let me throw something different at you about that. And I totally agree with you, by the way. I've been recently on a lit RPG reading binge.
Okay.
I think that in the last 3 or 4 months, I must have read a dozen novels or more, listened to them in audio. And one of the staple features of this particular genre is, in most cases, the human beings are pulled into these games and basically trapped. Their bodies die. They have no way back. They're there.
Their consciousness is essentially locked in the game.
Exactly so. In many of the cases, the NPCs seem to be human beings. Only in one of these particular series, the most recent one that I've been reading, has the character said, these people seem just as real as I do. Are they real? Are they not real? And going through the moral construct of, should I be, fighting these people like this? Do I need to be as careful with my companions that are NPCs? Because if they die, they're gone forever. They don't respawn like I do. How does my morality encompass them? Are they people or not?
That's really interesting. So if a character dies, they respawn?
Yes.
Ooh.
That's a staple of lit RPG.
Ooh. Okay. Interesting concept. Very interesting concept.
But the NPCs do not respawn, and so the series I'm currently reading, the character is gravely concerned, and it happens in other series that I've read as well, where the characters meet people that are people that they care about that are not actual players. And it does raise the specter of, at what point do we create like a mass online role-playing game that the AI creates personalities that are so realistic? Are they people? Are they not people? What rights do they have? Where do we go from there? And honestly, I wrote somewhere a couple of days ago that I had to spend a day writing down the ideas for a novel that was not in my genre, because the idea would just not go away. And it's a lit RPG novel. I think that at some point this year, I'm going to write it. And maybe I can explore some of those things, because I think that would be really interesting to dig into.
Yeah, I think that artificial reality, virtual reality, at some point it is going to be known as artificial instead of virtual. It will. It's only a matter of time. But in virtual reality, the entire concept of it is to emulate the world in such a fashion that hopefully you won't be able to tell the difference. In the Matrix, they used that and took it to the extreme, which is where the essentially the AIs are using humans and trapping them so they can keep them alive, because they realize without brains the human body just dies. So they create this simulation, but the people who are in it don't know it's a simulation. You're talking about where people are trapped in it and they know it's a simulation, essentially. Man, oh man, oh man, that is freaking terrifying. That is really freaking terrifying. Yeah. Ooh. I don't know. I don't like this place. I don't like this idea. I've played some of those games. No, thank you.
And there is some element of that to some of these stories, where staying and playing too long in one consecutive thing may end up getting your consciousness trapped. And the character was saying, I am so damn glad that I was playing this, fantasy-based game rather than playing one of these tank blow 'em up games, because he pitied the poor fools that were trapped for eternity in burning tank shells.
Oof. Or you could get trapped into a horror game.
Well, that was kind of the implied thing too. But basically, any kind of game that you can imagine. Most of these books revolve around fantasy based. I'm not sure really what. Maybe D&D is the driver behind that. I'm not really sure.
That and Warcraft, World of Warcraft, more than likely.
I never got into the whole massive online gaming aspect. That was never my deal. So I'm just a guy that sits down and role plays in person. So that's where I get my role playing stuff. But most of the books are fantasy based, and a few of them actually do touch upon science fiction here and there. But I could see it's not as dark as you're envisioning it, because you're going to take those themes that they put forth there and you're going to write them differently.
Of course.
The things that you look at and you go, oh, that's horrible, is because, well, you're a terrible person.
No, because the different because of what I find entertaining versus what you find entertaining.
It's totally true. It's totally true. It's really what you bring to it.
Yeah, somebody was like, why don't you, instead of writing a dystopia, why don't you write a utopia? Because you'd have no story. You'd have no story. There'd be no conflict.
I don't know. I could sort of see where you might do that. There's a lit RPG that's sitting in my inbox, or in my library, that I haven't gotten around to yet, where the guy logs into the game, and I don't think he's trapped there. I think he can log back out. But he discovers that rather than being the hero of the game, that he might accidentally be the villain.
Villain of the game.
So if you write a utopia, then you're going to have to be the bad guy.
Exactly. I did have the idea of a utopia being encroached upon and having to face and having to learn how to fight, because they haven't had to. That's been bred out of their society, so to speak. And then having to rediscover that would be, I think that would be kind of an interesting story to write, from the standpoint of the ethics and everything else that have to be tossed aside, essentially in the name of survival, which of course is really what apocalyptic fiction is about too. But that would be an interesting take. That'd be an interesting take on it.
And your view of what makes a utopia would be different than my view of what makes a utopia.
Of course. Absolutely.
Whereas our views of what makes dystopia is probably fairly close to identical.
Yeah. If for different reasons, which is hilarious.
Exactly, for different reasons, but still, the bad stuff ends up usually being really bad in much the same way.
Exactly, really bad. No matter what, you end up in a real problem. I love dreaming about this stuff. I love looking at space.com or whatever articles are there, then going after the actual sources, the abstracts, to get more of an idea of what's really being talked about, as opposed to the clickbait headline. And it sparks so many of these ideas. And it's also fun to go look at the things they're discovering now, but even today in archaeology and just mapping the world, finding trails through jungles that we didn't know existed, which point to civilizations that have been lost, have not been discovered yet. Even for all of our technology, even for all of our globetrotting, there are still parts of this earth that remain undiscovered. Just because you can see something doesn't mean it's been discovered, because to see something doesn't mean you know what it is.
There's a saying in military circles that to actually own a patch of ground, you have to put boots on it.
That's a good way of putting it.
And it's much the same with this. Just because you have flyover country or you see something from a satellite in orbit does not mean you've experienced it.
And without experiencing it, you really don't know what's there.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'll agree with that completely. Because we can see all these things way the hell out there, which is hilarious because there's all this evidence for Planet 9 or Planet 10, whatever you want to call it, depending on
Planet X.
Planet X. Yeah. Considering the fact that day to day Pluto loses or gains a planetary status, so I've given up. I'm just going to go back to my original
it
education.
Hasn't gained its planetary status back because the Astronomical Union is a bunch of douche nozzles.
It came back and then they shot it down. Well, screw them. Regardless, there are 9 planets in the damn solar system. That's where I'm coming from. Planet X, they say they've got all these observations for it. We can't find it.
Mm-hmm.
And we
it's
can't
floating out there in the dark.
We can't prove it's not there, which means that, to me, there are things, it's easier for us to see things that are far away than it is for us to see things that are right in our own freaking backyard.
And it goes to Planet X in the outer system. And they find that Planet X is Earth. It's a frozen Earth that seems to be a couple of hundred years more advanced than our current Earth, filled with frozen cities and billions of dead bodies. And apparently, the aliens were exploring it because they had no idea what it was or how it got there either. And I have not explained it in my series. They're still wrestling with what the fuck is this and where the fuck did it come from?
Tap, tap, tap. Why is this here?
Pretty much. Exactly. And see, this is what happens when you've got Terry who's riding into the dark going, what would I put out there? Why did I put this here? Because I could do all kinds of stuff. What am I going to do? I haven't the slightest idea.
As I'm recording Destruction, I'm coming across little things that I forgot that I even put in there. And my brain is going, oh, I can use that later, not in this series, but I can actually use that over here. But I think I know what happens. And it's terrifying and kick-ass at the same time. And I've only had one reader who caught on to it, who went, you guys forgot about something. And that's everybody's forgotten about something, overlooked it. So I can't wait to actually drop that bomb in shipyards. Everybody's gonna be like, including the readers, are gonna be like, oh shit. Yeah, gotta have more oh shit moments. If you're not doing it that way, you're just not doing it right. In going through that though, in thinking about those things, it brought up all these other discussions that we had at that table with AIs. And that really untied. Oh, God, I mixed metaphor Paul today. It really, really untied a lot of knots. I didn't have to let the car out of the horse because the racetrack was full.
I don't know what to say to that.
Nobody does. That's the whole point. I was on a panel and I can't remember what the mixed metaphor I used was, but the moment I said it, I was like, I looked at everybody, I was like, well, it must be mixed metaphor Paul day. And everybody laughed. I was embarrassed. I had to back up and try again. At first, everybody was just kind of like gonna let it go by. I wasn't gonna let it go by. I hate that. I hate it when you say something and you realize just how incredibly stupid that sounded when it did not convey what you were trying to say at all. which is most of my time on this show. Or when I talk to Terry in general. Terry brings out the man in me.
When you talk in general, maybe.
When I talk in general. Shut up, Terry. Nobody listens to you. You're just not important. So AIs, good or evil?
Yes.
Thank you. Oh my God. Yeah, let's go with that. Sure. The Terry says, sure. Wow, we should probably bring this to a close. It's been an hour. It's been an hour and 20 minutes.
That's how we rock it, man.
Oh my God. Who hosted this mess?
And speaking of Liberty Station, it's pending audio review as we speak. So hopefully in a couple of weeks, it will be available for your listening pleasure for those folks that never bothered to make the jump from Empire Bones to check out my alternate sort of universe where I have mustache twirling villains.
Mustache twirling villains.
It's so true. I intentionally went in that book, and those villains are definitely mustache twirling villains.
Yes, that's exactly right. And I think that there is a place for that. I do think I don't like those kind of characters unless they're actually supposed to be that way. It really pisses me off when I'm in a book where they end up that way because the writer got bored or because the writer got lazy. It's one thing if you establish at the very front of the book that this is going to be the mustaching, twirling, go back to the 20s movies. I'm not trying to be misogynistic.
Snidely Whiplash,
who ties up the defenseless lady on the railroad tracks, and the dude has to come along and save her kind of crap.
And I definitely had Snidely Whiplash kind of in mind when I was doing my villains here. I wanted my villains in this book to be the black-hearted knaves that they were.
Gotcha.
I fully accept it. I accept that some people are not going to like that, but that's what I had in mind when I wrote the first book, and they were the black-hearted knaves from moment one.
I don't think that's a problem if you set it up that way at the beginning. It's when you give them more philosophical license or ethical license that you've got an issue there. When you try and make them real people.
No, what I do with at least one of the villains in this is I'll take and I'll give him viewpoints that might be applicable to the other side, and then have him do things that are horribly terrific as good deeds to try to make that right. For example, in this universe, it's like 30 years in the future. So it's not current day. And I went ahead and for the purposes of the story, imagined how the chaos that they're having in France with an isolated Muslim population that was rioting at the time I started writing this book. They were having fires in Paris, and there was all kinds of chaos. And the doomsayers in the news were saying, "Oh, if this is allowed to continue, they're going to overset the entirety of France's government," and doomsaying. Doomsaying is what they were doing. And I said, can I take that further? If I take this 30 years in the future, can I make this into a plot element? And I made it so basically the government of France is actually on the verge of falling because of continual societal unrest from Islamic extremists. And that term may piss off some people, but it was applicable for this novel because I chose it to expand on the storyline that was sparking the idea in the first place. And so the bad guy, while he's in Paris, he decides it might be a good deed if he has his intelligence sources track down some random Muslim extremists, break into their apartment, and execute their entire cell.
Whoops.
That's his good deed for the day.
Whoops. Whoops. And what kind of hell does that rain down?
Let's just say that it has complications that come back later, basically to haunt the bad guys, not the good guys.
Right, yeah. The unintended consequences.
The unintended consequences do come back to haunt the bad guys for that.
I think the rule of, we really got to wrap this up, but the rule of unintended consequences, I think, is a mainstay of genre fic if you're doing it right. The characters can't always do the right thing. They can think they're doing the right thing. That's fine. And they may even do the right thing if they don't consider the consequences coming, or those consequences aren't apparent to them. But the fun part, and we go back to Dresden for this, the Walmart was on fire and it wasn't my fault. Bullshit. It was his fault.
The actual code, I looked it up for something else, is the building was on fire and it wasn't my fault. And it wasn't Walmart. That was a separate incident that he destroyed Walmart and it wasn't his fault.
Right. Regardless of where it was, the bottom line is, yeah, it kind of is your fault. You entered into this building with a goal, and in achieving that goal, this happened. It wasn't intended, but it was your fault because you instigated it.
I went into writing this particular first novel because I wanted to take events at the time I was writing them, and I wanted to say, how can I make a different world that's a little darker than our current world?
Right. Yeah.
So I chose to have the conflict that was going on at that time, and I upped it to 11. I made it into something much worse than it was. And I understand that that may torque off people that read the book. Unfortunately, I understand that. It's just one of the natures. If you write a book that offends no one, you might as well not bother writing at all. I don't set out to offend, but I'm not going to worry that some people don't like the story that I'm writing in that particular book. That's perfectly fine. That's personal taste. Rock on.
Yeah, pretty much. There's going to be.
It did give me a whole thing to go ahead and explore corporate malfeasance at levels that were completely unforeseen and unheard of in our real day, and use that to grow the bad guys out of. So I also chose the corporate. I amped to 11 corporate America times 10 times 11 here to make the bad guys in there, and even some of the good guys out of that. But yeah, I took a lot of elements of the modern world and exaggerated them solely to provide a setting that these characters grew out of. So it's not surprising to me that I have mustache twirling villains, because when you take something and you ramp it up to 11, you get kind of twirly.
Well, that also goes back to our built-in prejudices too, because we want to make our enemies into straw people. We want to make them into easily branded, easily associated with one thing, and whatever that thing is that we think is bad. Hence, you get words like socialism that have all this connotation to it, which do not actually match what it means. The same thing with communism, same thing with capitalism, same thing with any ism, so to speak. You get all this baggage with it, which does not have anything necessarily to do with the word or what its original philosophical intention was. But you get all that drag stuff, because I'm sorry, but there's never been a communist nation on the planet that I know of. There's never been one. There's never been a purely capitalist one either. However,
God, I think that's terrifying. A purely capitalist society terrifies me.
Yeah, it should. It absolutely should. Just like a purely libertarian society is terrifying in so many fucking ways.
There is a series of books written by Michael Z. Williamson where he has a society that is libertarian in its outlook. It's radically different than what one would normally expect of a society. It's interesting to read just because it's so different than anything I'd ever seen before.
Well, I'm gonna push this book again. Jennifer Government, really good teardown of capitalism and libertarianism taken to an extreme. And actually, it's not too far from the truth of what's going on in some countries like Brazil, where you literally have to pay the cops to go investigate something. And that's pretty much where it's gotten to. The criminals have a free hand, but normal people have to pay for protection or pay for anything. What a government is supposed to provide.
This criminal investigation sponsored by.
That's exactly right. Gotten to that point where, yeah, you have to have a corporate sponsor to get the cops to do something. Now there's a game show, folks. Okay, this is your goal. This is what you got to do right now. Go to your computers, write that story.
There was a television show that I don't remember the name of that lasted a whole season where a tech billionaire buys a police precinct. Basically, he bullies his way. Well, no, this is something different. He bullies his way into allowing the mayor of a major city to allow him to equip a department with high-tech gear and to help make it better than what it was, because one of his friends was killed in a robbery in that particular precinct, and he was totally dissatisfied with them investigating it.
Interesting.
It was kind of hokey in ways, but it was actually pretty interesting watching how the cops reacted, how the city government reacted to an interloper coming in and taking charge and changing everything about the way that they were doing things.
They covered that in a season of House, the show House, where
they
did, but it's different. An investor came in, an angel, so to speak, at the hospital, and donated all this money. And because he donated all this money, he thought he had the right to dictate policy, and it caused serious problems for everyone involved. And of course, House being House exacerbates the whole issue because he's an asshole. So it brought up those very kinds of issues, Terry, and it was really well done.
APB. It was a Fox drama.
Oh, is that what that was?
Yes.
Because it sounds interesting. I never knew that's what it was.
I enjoyed watching the first show. It was kind of, not the greatest television ever, but it definitely introduced a few new ideas in something like that. And I thought it was pretty interesting. So yeah, I'd recommend it.
Huh. Well, okay then.
I just kept seeing the thing go by time after time on television going, maybe I should watch the first episode of that just to see if I really understand what they're trying to do. And that's what it was.
Fascinating. I like it.
We need to wrap this thing up, Paul, because you won't shut up.
I won't shut up. I tried to wrap it up 20 minutes ago, you jerk. So it was 13 minutes ago, but who's counting? I'm guessing we're going to say I hosted this episode, so it was my radically,
I think so,
destroyed brain that came up with this crap. So that said, if you want to tell us how meanderingly ridiculous we are and give us your own thoughts on how stupid we are about AI and that we should just shut the hell up, you can email us at show@debrobotssociety.com. You can tweet me at Paul_Ena_Cooley, or you can join the listeners of the Dev Robot Society Facebook group, where our membership seems to be growing every single day, and lots of great conversations are coming. Just ignore the cat pics when Paul accidentally says something on the Facebook group.
Oh, he loves it.
That's not important right now. We would be remiss if we didn't mention our wonderful host, Pod Hoster, who makes all 400 bazillion episodes of DRS available for your ear holes. You can find us at YouTube at youtube.com/DRS podcast if you want to watch the show and see our ugly mugs. And if you want to support the podcast, you can become a Patreon patron, whereas for as little as $1 a month, you can help keep the thing commercial free, get access to live content, I screwed this up now. Exclusive content, live shows, and etc. And at the $10 level, you get your name read off every week. And this week, our $10 patrons are Sue, Get Out of My Way or Get Run Over, Bayman, JD Barker, Kelson, The Best Steel. Okay. Isabel, Sorry I Went Missing, PayPal Had a Stroke, Cushy. We all know how that works. Rick, Jonesing for a Toe Tag, Shaw. I will get to it. Lisa Slack, Sandy Manpants, Anmanatsu, Tracy Bodine, John Kilgallen, Devin Lee, Nathan, which wristwatches or Swiss wristwatches petty? You 2 weeks in a row. Come on, Nathan, you can do better than that. Drew, I hit the publish button. When do I become Rich Bernardi? Dream the hell on. Chris Winder, Andre Conde Moraes, TJ Chamberlain, and J.R. Hanley.
And folks, I want to leave you with this one thought as we close this out. Since we're talking about AI in the future, just remember that Rosie on the Jetsons was probably a porn bot.
Wow. Mind blown. Now the feather duster makes so much sense. Well, there's got to be a feather duster kink out there.
Well, she's dressed like a maid, so the maid is the whole porn kink. So just imagine, Rosie is servicing everybody. There you go, chomp, chomp, chomp. Yeah, that'll get your visual going.
Oh, with that scary image in mind, we will say goodbye. Thank you very much for joining me, Terry, and for the nightmares and years of counseling I now need.
Oh, sure. After the street, you're going to go ahead and blame me for this?
Bye, folks.
Bye-bye.